You have had challenges in your marriage or your relationship. Do we really know what men want? Do we really know what women want? And can we avoid so many marriages ending in divorce? The questions that you need to ask to find out what's going wrong in your relationship and how you can fix it are going to be helped today by Sadia Khan, a relationship psychologist and someone that really has got a finger on the pulse of understanding relationships and what we can all do to live a better, more harmonious life with our partners. And lastly, thank you to Najahi Events, who have been sponsoring us now on the podcast for over a year. Najahi bring motivational speakers to the region to help inspire, educate, and motivate you to achieve better success and live a better life. Sadia, thank you so much for coming to join us.
No, thank you.
It's good to have you on the show
It's
today.
great to be here.
We talked about you coming on the podcast for a while.
We did, and then we ran into each other at an event, and we were like, oh my god, we're supposed to do a podcast together.
Oh yeah, that's right. I spoke to you beforehand.
We spoke beforehand, and then we ran into each other at an event, and we were like, oh my god, let's do a podcast, but you didn't know anything about me, and I didn't know anything about you, but we know we wanted to join forces.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
I remember it as well as I do.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the benefit of everybody that watches and listens to this,
Yeah.
what do you do?
I'm a psychologist, but I used to be a psychology teacher. Now I do more therapy and online coaching for mainly couples, but my background is actually trauma. I did psychotherapy and I focus on trauma, but people online want to hear about relationships, so I end up talking a lot about relationships in the modern world.
So if you go back to my grandparents and great-grandparents,
Yeah.
marriage was for life. And that's what people did until death us do part, and through better or for worse meant that people would work through their troubles and divorce wasn't something that was spoken about.
Yeah.
So much so that in 1977, when my parents got divorced, I was the only person
Oh wow.
in school, the only person
How
in my
lucky.
community, 7.
7 years old.
I was the only person that had parents that had divorced.
Oh,
And
how
then
is that?
Well, it was, I didn't know any different about it. There was obviously a stigma attached to it, but when I'm 7 years old, what do you do?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some, if you don't dig into trauma around that kind of time, some issues that happen because of it. But divorce then became more and more mainstream and more accepted, and nowadays I think, is it 50% of
Yeah, I think it's
divorce?
higher than that. It's getting higher than that, but it's around 50%.
So, but it's interesting because you're from the UK like I am, but your heritage is Pakistan.
Yeah, fully Pakistani.
So if you take that kind of like stereotypical understanding of a marriage in India and Pakistan, it's arranged marriages.
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
parents decide, or parents encourage you to be with people that they see deemed fit.
Yeah.
Yeah?
An ideal match.
The ideal match. That's
Yeah.
it. There's been that TV show on Netflix as well, which is quite hilarious to watch.
Have you seen watching it?
I've watched some of the episodes, yeah. It's quite funny to
Yeah.
see this. Because in the UK, an arranged marriage to us makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
But when you really try and understand it, there's some logic behind it.
Totally, and cohabiting couples have the highest rates of divorce, and arranged marriages have the lowest rates of divorce. And it's something I'm starting to understand more and more, especially now with this profession. I completely understand the logic behind arranged marriages, because when we're left to our own devices, we just choose whoever we like. And you could like someone who might be bad for you, might like someone who's completely different to you, whatever it is. But when families choose, they choose families that are similar to them. And the reason why that's so productive is because chances are you have a similar set of morals, values, and upbringing in childhood as well. So what happens is your childhood predicts your relationships a lot more than we realize. So when two families who are similar, the children tend to be compatible. Whereas two families that are totally different cultures, morals, and like prescriptive behavior, their children are not going to understand each other when the push comes to shove. So what ends up happening is people that come from similar backgrounds last longer. So it actually makes a lot of sense. Now that I'm older, I can see the logic behind it. Like if you chose somebody for your kids, you choose somebody whose probably parents are similar to you, similar kind of education, all that, and then by design, the children are more compatible.
Okay, well, I've got some good examples of this in my own life. So my first marriage was to somebody who we lasted for, I think, 5 years. I had 2 kids and got divorced. And I look back on her family now and I think they're all nutcases.
Yeah.
I really do.
Makes a big difference, right?
And I'm glad I'm not part of that. I'm married to somebody else now, Anna, and Anna's parents, again, we're from completely different worlds, but her parents I really respect. I like being around them. They're very courteous, they're kind, they're respectful.
Yeah.
And so in return, I'm all of those things towards them as well. And so it feels much better.
Yeah,
being around them.
and I think this is something men really underestimate when they're picking a partner. They look for whoever they like and they think that they can change a woman, and they think if they treat a woman well, if you court her correctly, she's all yours. But I always say your competition is her childhood. If she had a chaotic childhood, you can give her and offer her the most stability there is to be found, but she will reject it. She'll seek chaos and she will glorify chemistry. Whereas if you choose somebody who's had a stable upbringing, lots of love, when you give her love, she reciprocates it. But when you give it to somebody who's come from a broken home and a broken background, when you give her love, she then sabotages it. So men are giving love recklessly, women are giving love recklessly, thinking that they can change this person. But this is why arranged marriages, there was that common understanding. Like I remember my parents saying things like, oh, their family is a bit like dodgy, don't go near them, and this family's good, and at the time thinking that's so judgmental, but there's actually psychological validity to what they were saying.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Well, that makes a whole lot of sense the way you just explained it. For me, I would have never thought that. Okay, so but what happens nowadays? People meet others. There's all these different ways of meeting. When I was in my late teens, I'd be looking at a girl like you in a bar for 3 or 4 hours and try to summon the courage up to come and say hello, how are you, and get your number and stuff. And that required a lot of bravery because you had to deal with rejection and stuff like that. Nowadays, obviously, it's different because it's all on apps and stuff like that, which we'll go into.
Yeah.
But people seem to fall in love with people that aren't necessarily the right people for them very quickly. That whole kind of like honeymoon phase happens. We're in the 3 months dating, and before they know it, they're telling each other they love each other and they want to live together and stuff. To me, when I look back on all my relationships, it's like you know nothing about that person for the first 1.5 to 2 years, really.
Yeah.
And it's not so much knowing about them, is you don't know how you're going to truly be around them yourself as well.
Because bring up sides of you. They bring up different sides of you. People doing, yeah.
And so there's this kind of like this false narrative that exists in the early parts of a relationship that needs to be worked through before you can truly be a couple. With that said and done, do you think that people are aware of that, or do you think they just still go into relationships, willfully naive and romanticising everything before? I
think the rise of romanticism has left to the death of marriage, because what's happening is people are so attuned to what they want and their desires and not their outcomes in life. Now, if you want to get married and settle down, the person who you might want, who's like the hottest girl in the room or the most exciting guy, he might be what you want, and that might meet your current desires, and you might constantly fall in love instantly. But somebody you need for a long-term marriage might be somebody more settled, calm, and stable. So what's happening is because we're being told that feeling, that chemistry is what you should go by, like that feeling is so special, you should follow that instinct, we are being led in the wrong direction, because that instinct contains all our desires. That could be like a desire to have drugs, it could be food, whatever. We're supposed to actually forego those feelings for the sake of our long-term goals. And if that person that gives you all those butterflies but isn't good for you, we should be avoiding that. But romanticism has taught you that feeling suggests it's love and it's special and you should work with that person. And really it's counterproductive to long-term goals. So that's why marriage is falling apart.
What do women look for and what do men look for? And has it always been the same, or has that evolved?
We look for a reincarnation of our childhood.
Okay, what does that mean?
So if you were given consistent care, love, unconditional, all that good stuff as a child, which very few people get, but if you do get it, if you're lucky enough to come out of childhood unscathed, then you'll look for stable, caring, consistent monotony, and you'll meet those people who just met somebody in high school, got married, and now they're still together, they talk on the weekends, very calm life. And there's other people who grew up with chaos, abuse, neglect, trauma, something like that, and so what they'll look for is somebody who can reincarnate those feelings, and they don't realize it. So they find themselves in one toxic relationship after the other, saying this person was bad, that person was bad, not realizing that they attached to that toxicity because of how they've been programmed to think love is defined by chaos.
Okay, well, this is going to challenge you then a bit, or maybe me. So I have 2 daughters. They both come from a broken home like I do, because they're my daughters and I got divorced. One of them, when she was 17, started dating a boy. She's 23 years old now. They're still dating 6.5 years later.
Yep.
Very happy, very settled, planning their future together.
Amazing.
The other one is 3 years younger, so she's 20, nearly 21. And the thought of a relationship to her is just like, what a nightmare, what a headache. It's about having fun, enjoying herself, drinking, smoking, partying, whatever it might be. And looking at her sister who settled down, she's like, why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
That's really boring.
Yeah.
But you've got 2 kids that both come from the same environment.
Well, two kids don't always get the same parents because their birth order has an impact. Their natural sensitivity has an impact. So that's why you'll get 2 kids from an alcoholic and one will be an alcoholic and one will never touch alcohol, because 2 children are not raised by the same parents, even though they have the same parents. Where you are in your marriage, where you are financially changes, and the reaction they get from the child because of their own nature also changes. But I would say usually when people have gone through a broken home environment, doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it, because I'm sure you gave them lots of unconditional love throughout it. But it can lead to 2 responses. One is where they become hyper clingy to whoever they love because they've seen it break it down. So what happens is who they fall in love with, they can almost like live in that person's skin. They love them, they stick to them, they work through even things that they shouldn't work through. They want to work through it because that fear of abandonment. Now that fear of abandonment in another child can lead to complete independence. I think my fear of abandonment is going to be manifested by being completely autonomous, not needing a relationship, keeping relationships at arm's length. So they both might have a level of abandonment in them, not because you did anything wrong, but just watching what a divorce looks like. It's children learn relationships end. So in that process, they either become hyper attached or hyper independent, and both of them are semi-trauma responses.
Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit from what you said and just give myself a little pat on the back there for a minute, because I think, sarcastically I do, I think my eldest is the one that's in the relationship. My eldest is a lot like me. My youngest is a lot like my ex-wife.
Right.
And so if my eldest has found that way of, looking for the calm, that's because of my wonderful parenting skills, and that's just connected to me. So,
but now you're quite calm in relationships and you're stable. And
wow, it's a really deep question, because the answer that I would give you versus the answer everybody else would give you might not be the same.
Right. From the lens of a partner?
No.
Right, from the lens of you?
No.
So what are you talking about?
I think I want things to be calm.
Yeah, you're pretty calm.
And I don't want things to be, I'm not needy.
Yeah.
So I'm fiercely independent. And my wife Anna is fiercely independent as well. And that works for me because that neediness doesn't make me feel comfortable. But also, there isn't a romantic bone in my body.
Okay, so you have that avoidant kind of independent trauma response where you love space, you love independence, you could live separately, wouldn't bother you. You are quite guarded emotionally, so your partner might sometimes wonder what you're thinking or feeling. And you love that person, you want to be with somebody, but you don't want to be emotionally intimate all day, every day. So you like them in the house, but you don't want to be talking all day, every day. And does that sound a bit familiar?
Yeah, really familiar.
And then what will happen is sometimes your partner's question if you love them or not, because you're so strong with or without them. You do love them, but your love is an avoidance style, where it's like, I love you, but I'm going to do my life, and if you want to come along, you're most welcome, but I'm not going to change everything just for a relationship. It doesn't work like that for avoidance. Does that sound familiar?
It sounds spot on. And I think a lot of that comes from going through a divorce the first time. I think that plays a part in realising that you don't want to attach yourself to somebody forever, only to feel pain from that experience.
It's very painful.
Yeah, to me it was like death, even though...
Worse than grief, I always say, because people kind of normalise the divorce, but with grief there's a level of acceptance that this didn't work and it's out of your hands. But with divorce, it leaves people absolutely traumatised. And I think because it's so common, people forget, and even when your friends getting a divorce, it's just, oh, that's a shame. But people don't realise that person's going through trauma.
Okay, well there's that aspect, plus the aspect of my parents got divorced when I was 7 and my dad left.
Oh, okay, so was it just a divorce?
So my parents got divorced, my dad as in left the country, went to another country.
Right. With another family or?
So he started another family since, but he went to another country and working overseas, and so my dad was my hero, and then all of a sudden he's not there, and so I felt abandoned.
Absolutely.
And I don't think I ever got over that feeling of being abandoned, so I find it very hard to abandon.
Yeah, you find, but the thing is with people with your response, they don't let go of a relationship, but even so because they don't want to abandon anyone, but they emotionally abandon. That's their way of protecting themselves. So they'll be there, but emotionally they won't be as intimate as a partner would like. And somehow they'll always they'll never cheat or anything, not necessarily cheat, but they'll keep their eyes open, they can be a bit critical of their partners. It's their way of creating emotional distance. So even after intimacy, even after sexual intimacy, they might go jump on the laptop and do some work, or they might go on their phone. Does that sound familiar? Yeah,
not at all. Wow, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's the avoidant methodology of maintaining relationships, but there's an emotional distance to prevent the pain of abandonment. So the partner is always left confused. Does this person even like me? But only when the partner threatens to leave, then they're like, no, I love you, like grand gestures. But when they come back, they're like, it's as if business as usual.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a trauma response.
Yeah, that's a perfect description.
It's a very common response. A lot of men have this and don't realise it, and their partners think, oh, they're narcissistic. It's a trauma response because you don't not care about your partner. This is how you love from a distance because it's painful loving so intimately and then they leave. So you're operating from a place of fear, but it doesn't look like that because you look so strong and independent. But you're operating out of a fear of abandonment, and usually you attract clingy partners. Because for some reason the clingy people love the avoidant people because the avoidant people reinforce their view that they're not loved correctly and nobody loves them correctly. Yeah, isn't it so draining? So that's why it's good that you've got a partner that's independent because you'll probably understand it and not take it personal.
Let's talk about some of the work that you do. So you work with men whose wives cheat on them.
A lot. Everybody's wife's cheating these days. Okay. Yeah, it's so bad. Goodness me. Wives need to, they're all cheating at the moment. Maybe it's the ones I deal with.
Okay, so obviously there's going to be people watching this.
That's obviously not all. I do apologize. I'm talking about just a clientele. I've got a very skewed vision of relationships because I attract and I work with those that are suffering.
But there'll also be people listening right now in a car with their partner.
Yeah, your wife's cheating, guys. If you think she's cheating, she's cheating. No, I'm joking. Oh, God forbid.
So give me examples of, I mean, stereotypically, historically, we have been told time and time and time again by society that men cheat, women aren't the cheaters, men are the ones that cause the problem. I always ask myself the question: if men are cheating and women don't cheat, then who are the men cheating with? There's got to be there's two takes to the tango. But anyway, what are the reasons that you've learned that women cheat, and are they similar to why men cheat? Or and in terms of scale, is it as many women cheating as men, or is the data telling us something else?
I think what has happened is because society's conditioned us to tell us that men cheat and women don't. Men don't look for the red flags. With women, you come home late a few times and she's already suspicious. You don't reply to her text, she's already suspicious because we've been conditioned to think that's a red flag. Men aren't trained to think women cheat. They think women are loyal, loving, and if anything, they're the one that's going to cheat. So they're not trained to look for the red flag. And what I say with women who are genuinely most likely to cheat, usually it comes from her background. If she grew up without a stable, loving father figure, what happens is one partner is... Children are designed to be loved by two people. It's just how they're designed. You've got children, they need you, they need their mum, they need two people. And from your own experience that you need a dad as well. Now, what happens when you're in a relationship is that person kind of becomes your everything. And when they sense a fear of abandonment, any abandonment that their partner might be spending too much time at work, might be taking long to reply, whatever it is, that woman who grew up with that fear of abandonment now thinks, shit, I'm going to be by myself, ends up going to somebody, having a backup plan. Whereas a woman with a healthy home, what happens when that happens, she doesn't like it, she'll communicate it more often, and if she has to leave, she'll leave. But the woman with the fear of abandonment, fear of being alone, doesn't want to be by herself again, so she needs to have that love from two people, she'll get it from somebody else. And that usually is what I find. When a man tells me about his wife cheating, it's the first question I ask. It's a sad reality though, it's a shame. Because I don't want to in any way judge it, but when you've had no father figure at all, it puts a lot of pressure. Women need to be loved. They need men. And so when they find a husband, he becomes the only man in her life, and when he's abandoning her, she thinks, shit, what do I do? Whereas when you have your father figure, it's like, my boyfriend's being annoying, and your dad will say, oh, don't worry about it. You've got that, when you're comforting your kids, they come to you with so much, and then your dad gives you that financial security if you need it, and he gives you that emotional security if he gives you that buffer. Now without that, it's very hard for women when they start feeling like a bit abandoned. I'm not blaming anybody, but that's usually what I find, is some kind of childhood trauma.
So that then goes back to choosing the right partner in the first place, doesn't it? Making sure you're with the right person.
So making sure that person's healed or understands their kind of insecurities rather than reincarnates them.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, who's cheated?
Everybody. If you're in Dubai, everybody.
Well, talk to me about that. Do you think that's more common here in Dubai?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. And I always say that because here's the reality: rich men are far more likely to be cheated on. They think they're not.
Whoa. Say that slowly. Rich men are far more likely to be cheated on.
Far more likely to be cheated on.
Why are rich men far more likely to be cheated on?
Usually their wives don't work. When your wife doesn't work, it gives her the luxury of time, energy, effort, all those things. So usually she doesn't work. They usually have nannies, so she's not this drained. In England it's totally different. When you're a housewife in England, you're still in your pajamas all day. But here you've got the luxury of maids, all this stuff. So you've got the luxury of being social. And the other thing is, usually with rich men, they're busy. They're super, super busy. So it gives their wife a lot of idle time. And she's in circles where there's lots of eligible bachelors or lots of desirable men. Now, if you're dating a guy that, is, and this is no offense, but say, for example, just a casual 9 to 5, his friends are usually a casual 9 to 5 kind of guy. It's not this, look at that guy, he knows this guy. None of that. It's just, that's John, that's James, that's it. It's quite casual. But with a rich man, he introduces this woman to a lifestyle and to a network that she can't access without him. And then that, coupled with spare time and money, means idle minds are the devil's workshop.
So boredom leads to infidelity?
Well, yeah, because rich men also, what happens is they don't realise they're not spending as much time together.
So do rich men typically cheat on their mates?
They do. I mean, I think with men it's more consistent across the social economic band. It's just that rich men can access more beautiful women if they wanted to, more gold diggers.
So the women are essentially shagging the personal trainer, and the rich men are shagging their secretary?
Basically.
Is that...
Unfortunately.
Really?
Yeah, unfortunately. Usually the nannies have a side piece, and he's usually, works for her partner.
The nanny has a...
No, the wife, sorry.
So the wife?
Yeah, a side partner who's usually just like the children's swimming instructor or something like that. Isn't that awful? But this is a generalisation, this is not everybody. But it's usually what I find. It's frequent. And also, unfortunately for rich men, they can't help but attract women that like lifestyle more than connection. Because a woman that really values connection, she doesn't like a rich man's lifestyle. A woman that really needs emotional connection, she finds that being with a CEO or being with a really successful man is hard for her. She leaves because she wants emotional intimacy. So rich men are almost left with women that love lifestyle, who will compromise on emotional connection in order to get that financial investment. And so rich men are left with a pool of women who are not as connected to them. So more likely to cheat.
If you're single here in Dubai, you're, I don't know, late 40s, you're attractive, you're independent.
Man or woman?
A woman.
A woman, yeah.
What kind of man would go for you, considering that age?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting question. I would say, I think men do come full circle. What happens is when they're young, they'll choose a compatible partner, like around the same age, same kind of social economic status, whatever. Then they might get money. Then they realize how annoying being married is. So they, usually get divorced. Then they just want to party, and they want that 23-year-old Swedish model, and they want to enjoy their life. But then they realize how vacuous that is when their back starts hurting, and she could care less. And he's sick, and she's nowhere to be found. And so then what happens is they almost get re-traumatized, and then recalibrate back to normal. And then they start seeking more emotional intimacy, and then they want a woman who's around the same age, who's not using them, and will be there when they have a doctor's appointment, because doctor's appointments get more frequent when a man gets older.
So the guy who's 50 years old dates the 35-year-old or the 30-year-old because he's young and hot, etc. Yeah. The guy that's 65 years old, he doesn't date the 50-year-old. He typically goes for companionship more. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it doesn't matter so much about his age. It's about what he's done in that past. Say if he's had enough of those models, influencers that have used and abused him and left him when he's needed them, and he's seen them walk away with his best friend in a club enough times for him to then recalibrate. Because that's what they will do. Yeah, those 23-year-old influencers that you think are going to be loyal to you, they're on the table for free food and they will leave with the bouncer's number.
Talk to me about narcissistic women.
Oh, there's so many of them.
Yeah. Well, first of all, what is a narcissistic woman?
I would say narcissistic women. I would say there's more of a case of narcissistic mothers than there is just of women. And I think the process of becoming a mother, and I think this is something that's not spoken about enough, is the process of becoming a mother creates narcissistic women because it's so draining on the body. The things that they go through to have this baby, that when they finally birth it, they almost expect a loyal minion out of that child, and they use that child as a weapon. And so what happens is people who might be slightly selfish and entitled, when they become a mother, they become a narcissist because they see that child as an extension of them. It's their identity. And you see it a lot, even with the rise of abortions. The fact that women see babies as a body part, and they'll say things like "my body, my choice," completely disregarding human life because they see it as a body part. So imagine that mentality you're going into mothering. But you're seeing a child like an organ. Like, okay, if I want it, I will keep it. If I don't want it, I don't keep it. Not seeing it as a separate human being that has a life and rights. I'm not saying there's anything wrong or right about abortion, but look at that mentality we're breeding in women. That is your body, it's your choice. So what's a child then? Just a body part? So then when they become...
Well, I'm not having that.
Yeah, well, that's the mentality we're creating.
No, I don't agree with that.
Why?
Well, because you're suggesting if somebody has sex with a man and they're pregnant within a short period of time, that they should birth that child.
I'm suggesting that it's not a body part. So you can lose that child, you can keep that child, but it should be a mutual decision between husband and wife or between the two parties because it's two people's baby. Just because it's brewed in your body doesn't make it yours. We are biologically programmed like this. I didn't volunteer to have a uterus. I didn't say, please let me spend 9 months having this baby. We are programmed. So therefore, if I have a baby with somebody, it's not just my choice to kill it or keep it. It's a baby. It's not a body part.
Yeah, but you're saying that it takes two people. Women talk to them about and use them as organs. So
saying my body, my choice. What is that implying about baby?
That implies that she has the right to decide to keep it or not.
But then that implies that the baby is what, a child or a body part?
An embryo, yeah.
Well, it's a child, and a child is two people's. And the idea of me saying my body, my choice, it's mine. When really two people make...
You and I don't know, we're dating, okay, we're both single people, we're dating, we get intimate after a while and hey diddly by mistake something went wrong and you're pregnant.
Yeah.
Okay, so what should happen?
We should have a discussion and get to a mutual
agreement. Let's say you say, you know what, I've never had a baby, I've always wanted a baby, it's my dream. And I'm like, I've never had a baby, I've never wanted a baby, it's my nightmare.
I would say if there's even one person saying no, side towards a no, because it leads to resentment and the child is then birthed with a conflict. But I do think it should be two people's choice. It shouldn't be my body, my choice. That slogan is disgraceful and disturbing.
But it's my body, my choice, your money.
Yeah.
But it is, isn't it? Because if a woman gets pregnant and she decides that she wants to have the baby, the man, regardless, regardless, I have to pay for it for the next 18 years.
It goes to jail if you don't. And so many women had put the wrong man's name on the birth certificate and even sent men to jail for not paying it when he wasn't the father.
Okay, that's a separate issue.
Yeah.
So basically, my body, my choice, your money.
Disgraceful. Now tell me if that's not breeding a generation of narcissistic women. We're creating them. Society is conditioning women to become as narcissistic as possible through the use of social media, through the use of abortion laws, through the slogans like women impact. Everything is creating narcissism in women these days, but nothing more visceral than the abortion debate.
Okay, let's take some other examples around this because it's important for me to understand. You know, I'm 52, you're 30 years old, I'm a generation ahead of you, and so I come from a different time. Just a bit,
I actually think we're more alike than I would be with a 21-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah, because we didn't grow up with memes and social media and TikTok. I think we would have far more in common than me with the average 18, 20-year-old.
You'd be lucky to get an 18.
Oh, honey, they're pretty past me.
So I've got a girlfriend, let's say you're my girlfriend. Okay, let's just use these as examples. Okay, you're my girlfriend, both got social media. On your social media, there's pictures of me and you at the beach. Okay, in our swimming costumes, there's pictures of you at the beach and use your swimming costume. There's you at a party with a short skirt and a bit of cleavage showing. You posted that on social media as well, so there's a bit of that. I don't really think much about it because I think you're hot and sexy, and so I don't really think much about it. Are you doing anything to disrespect our relationship?
The reality is you might be posting with zero intentions to do anything disrespectful, but the response in other men is disrespectful. Whether we like it or not, the response you're going to get from other men is disrespectful. Now, I could have zero intentions of ever cheating or disrespecting my partner, but the reality is if I'm posting a bikini pic, I know what it would look like. My DMs would be filled with men. Now, all it takes is that this is why we're creating narcissism. When a woman posts a picture of a bikini and then sees her DMs like covered with men, then the next time her boyfriend's not on his best behavior, she can use that as a weapon. She can automatically post a picture, get a replacement, and go for dinner that night with somebody new. Now, tell me we're not creating narcissistic women if this is the setup that social media is providing women. It's providing women with the idea that men are disposable and they are easily lured. And for men, they do it as well with their liking and sending, but it's not as easy as it is for women.
Well, if I was to post a picture of me in my swimming costume, I know I'd have a few likes and a few comments, but maybe they wouldn't be the kind of...
They won't fly you out to the Barbados.
But probably go my mum and my Granwell. And maybe Chelsea Petty.
Exactly, and it's a completely different ballgame. So what social media is doing, what this woke culture is doing, is destroying femininity and replacing it with narcissism and telling them that's feminism.
So if a girl is posting pictures of her on Instagram, let's say, in her swimming costume and a bikini, and she's in a relationship, then she's indirectly disrespecting her partner because other men see that content and want to pursue what they see on that image.
It's totally unconscious in a lot of cases, but the reality is we don't live in a perfect world. If it was a perfect world, women could walk around wearing whatever they want and men would act no different if she was covered, but it's just not life. I used to be a teacher and when I used to wear dresses and stuff like that to work, and I used to sometimes get called in to be like, oh, the boys are getting a little bit, can you, and I used to get a little bit like,
what?
The boys are getting a little bit distracted, can you maybe not wear heels or not wear this, and I used to get called in quite a bit, and I know, but I used to...
What teenage boys used to get distracted?
Obviously, they're not blind. But yeah, and then at the time I used to get a bit like, oh, this is not nice, how come so-and-so gets to wear whatever she wants, and I'd be pointing to like a 50-year-old woman and be like, she gets to wear whatever she... But the reality is, life's not fair, and then I had to realise that, well, Sally, come on, grow up, life's not fair. The reality is, as teenage boys, I was like 22 when I started teaching, 21 years old, so, you just got to play the game. The real world is, you can't do whatever you want, whenever you want, and expect no repercussions. It's just not life. Now, the reality is, I can post whatever I want, do whatever I want, and a lot of times it is innocent. I see so many women with their children on the beach posting pictures, they've got no bad intentions, but it doesn't change the fact that men see bikinis as no different to lingerie. They get to see your body naked.
Okay, so let me take another example. You and I are in a relationship. We dated 6 months, and on my social media, I follow other women that dress like that or post pictures like that. Is that disrespectful? Is that irrelevant? Does it matter?
I think it depends on the boundaries of your relationship. I just think that some women have zero concern about that, and I think pick a partner like that. If you want to be that guy that has that autonomy, pick a partner that allows that and doesn't mind it. But a lot of women, and I actually think this is the rise of why surgery is so high in this day and age, women are seeing what men are following on Instagram and then changing their bodies and appearance to match that, and that's why women are now starting to look the same. The amount of young girls that come to me and say, he keeps following girls with lip fillers, and so now I'm getting my lips on. He keeps following girls with like a bum implants, and now I'm getting... So it's the reason why women are getting more and more insecure is because they can literally see what my boyfriend's type, what it would be if I didn't exist. They're getting a version of that, and it's not a good reminder for yourself.
I look at young women now, and all I see from young women is this whole kind of like massive lips, okay, that look ridiculously big for their face. Obviously, fake boobs, they all seem to have those.
But they do a lot of bum implants now as well.
Yeah, and this whole thing with bums.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I'm old, but I don't get this bum thing. Yeah. Why do women feel that they need to have bums that you can put a cup of tea on?
That's what men are rewarding in society at this moment.
Do men really like that?
Well, young men, yeah, because pornography. pornography dictates males' desires. So if you look at what men are into, it's very much dictated by the content that he finds in pornography. Pornography tells you what you like. You don't like pornography. Pornography will put something out there, make it common, and then people will be like, yeah, I actually quite like the idea of sleeping with my stepsister. Where'd you get that from?
Most people have watched pornography.
Yeah, I have it though. Are you proud of me?
So I remember the first time I saw pornography.
Yeah.
I think I was about, I don't know, maybe 10 or 11 years old. I
Super young in his generation.
was at a friend's house. We were playing computer games up in his loft, and his dad had this chest in the corner, and in this chest in the corner were these Penthouse magazines, and Playboy magazines.
Really?
And we looked at them and were like, okay, shut them in, terrified that our fingerprints might be on them, and we ran away, never to be seen again. And then some years later, I was working on a building site in my summer holidays, and there were some pornographic magazines that were in the cafeteria for the builders, and I saw them as well. And so that was my first exposure. And then thereafter, I at my age, I didn't get a chance to see videos because you had to go to the video shop and hire a video.
Yes, right.
But hold on. But nowadays, everybody has access to it, regardless. Everybody has access to it on their device anytime they want to have it. What kind of damage? Can't believe I've just told you that information.
Yeah,
My
heavy child.
mum won't forgive me. Mum, by the way, it was Auntie Jackie's. My mum listens to every podcast. I was at Auntie Jackie's. It was Bose in his chest. Russell showed it to me. Anyway, now you got that out of the way.
Auntie Jackie, you know what like? Yeah.
I love you, Mum. But I remember, I believe that if you're in a relationship or if you're single, that there's a place for people that enjoy that kind of stuff. It shouldn't be kind of like it's bad for everybody. Or do you believe differently?
I believe differently because I just think, look at what you described there. Look at the amount of shame and guilt attached to just looking at pornography, looking at another woman. The shame and guilt that you might feel like asking for a magazine on the top shelf. Men knew there was something seedy about that. What's happening now is we've removed that shame and guilt attached to sexual pleasures. So what's happening is pleasures have no cap. There's no shame, there's no guilt. Now, absolutely, I understand that there might be an element of it, but here's how pleasure works. It takes more of it to create the same level of dopamine. Now, if we're starting at 10 years old, the children are getting watching porn. As they age, it's going to take more and more and more and more. And there's never
more.
It's going to take
like green stuff.
For more novelty.
More novelty.
And novelty, this is where we get child trafficking and pornography. People don't start with child pornography. They start with just normal stuff. Then they go on to like bisexual stuff, and they go to transgender stuff, and then it works slowly. The devil is patient. He'll start with normal desires, and they get more and more insidious. Before you know it, you get to a place you don't recognize. Now, there's never been a serial killer on death row that hasn't been addicted to pornography. Can you believe that?
What?
They did, and they did this study.
Say that again.
There's never been a serial killer on death row that was not addicted to pornography, and this was in the 90s. They did this study. So imagine in the 90s, people on death row were addicted to pornography when it was difficult to find VHS, headphones, there was no such thing. So imagine in this day and age, where being addicted to pornography is a norm. Imagine the impact of it creating narcissistic women, as we talked about in society, and psychopathic men. And marriages, so many marriages fall apart because men are unable to get an erection from their wife. Imagine watching all sorts of porn and then going to your normal wife who breastfeeds your children and expecting to have a physical connection. It won't work. So the damage caused by porn outweighs any positives. I don't believe there are any positives, but if they were, the damage is far more ubiquitous than any benefit.
Wow. I didn't
Ted Bundy does a really great breakdown on this, and Ted Bundy's a fantastic case study because he didn't have a particularly traumatic childhood. And as a psychologist, the first thing you look at is their childhood. You're like, okay, this I'll go to. And he had 2 loving parents, and he did a really great interview, and he said that I came from a healthy home, everything's okay, but I'm not saying it was pornography, but pornography introduced me into a world I didn't know was humanly capable. So then I wanted to test my human desires. It's a great interview because he's so articulate with it.
Okay, some other questions for you on this particular subject then. Open relationships and cheating. What are the boundaries in there?
I have to preface this with saying I don't have much experience in working with people with open relationships, and I don't have as much experience. In my small amount of experience of what I've seen is open relationships, a bit like, when people used to have 2 wives and stuff like that. It sounds good on paper, but it works only when you're not emotionally attached. So in cultures where they have 2 wives, 4 wives, like we see in Dubai, marriage is a duty. It's a coming together of 2 families and creating a home. So people can work well with that. Now, when we've got this romanticized idea in the Western world where you have to be madly in love and connected to your husband and wife, when you see an element of that being taken to somebody else, it's a matter of time where you just either start to want that person to partner back, or you just, why am I here? If I don't love you enough to have that connection, why am I here? So it doesn't work in the same capacity, I would imagine. What would you think?
The thought of, after being married once and married again, the thought of having
2 mother-in-laws,
2 wives, having 2 wives, or 3 or even 4 wives, to me, it's just like, it sounds really draining to me.
But though, and again, this is my lack of experience, so in the process of women, when they have kids and they get busy, can you understand why there's 2 wives in those kind of environments?
I think that when people have 2 kids and they get busy, that means that you need to do work with your wife and understanding that the kids, although they're the priority in terms of responsibility and caring, they got married.
Yeah.
And there needs to be work done on trying to remember that the husband should be treated like the husband.
Yeah.
But I've experienced it myself where the kids came first.
Because I experience this a lot with men when they first-time fathers are most likely to be unfaithful, and a lot of studies have found this, and they try and put it down to a woman's low sex drive, and it's actually the lack of attention they receive in their own home. They come home from a busy day of work and she's not looking at them anymore. She doesn't greet them. She's busy, and this is no disrespect for her because the job is really tiring. But he starts to feel like a stranger in his own home. She's just prioritizing everything over him, and he's working and coming back and seeing nothing, no role for him.
That person then cheats. The guy then cheats and finds something either more exciting, more new, more attention. That happens then, which leads then to the downfall of the relationship.
And then it's another trauma of being by yourself again, and then realizing the girl that you were cheating with wasn't that great. It's just that you needed a bit of attention. And so I think remaining connected is the antidote to all of this trauma.
Okay. Now, how does it work differently here with the mentality of Emirati or Middle Eastern women compared to women back in the West? Do you see a difference in behaviour, understanding, interpretations, or is it all the same?
I would say, I think it used to be really, really different. I think the women used to have this mentality that they're a bit more financially entitled, like my partner pays for everything and sorts everything out, but then I will look after him in terms of cooking and cleaning and stuff. What's happening now with the rise of social media, it's giving everybody kind of globalized norms and values, and the entitlement of women is starting to creep into cultures where women are still expecting that financial investment without giving any of that domestic duty. So what's happening in Western women is that they're now seeing that I want a lifestyle, I want to be flown out, I want a bag, but none of them are thinking, I'm going to make my husband a cup of tea when he comes home, I'm going to cook dinner, I'm going to make sure his clothes are ironed. Again, the narcissism is creeping in.
Okay, so this is what I hear a lot about guys that say to me, or I hear people say that guys want to have a traditional wife and a partner that stays home, doesn't have a career.
I don't believe that.
Okay, let me finish what I'm saying. one of the sexiest things I think that exists for me in women is their career.
Yeah.
Okay. I find it really sexy to see a woman who's driven and focused and passionate and career-minded. I think that's really sexy. One of the ugliest things I see in women is them expecting men to pay.
Yeah.
I find it ugly for a number of reasons. Number one, okay, I understand it if you've got 3 kids and you're busy being a homemaker.
Yeah, yeah.
Husband is the breadwinner.
And treating him well.
But if there's 2 of you together, you're a team. And to me, if you're a team, you both contribute.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that we go 50-50 at Pizza Hut tonight or anything like that. Okay? But it means we work as a team.
Yeah.
You know, give me money, buy me clothes, buy me handbags, pay for my lifestyle, pay for my life while I sit and
do nothing. Yeah.
Okay. You go out and work and you owe it to me because you need to be a man.
Yeah, it's a dangerous mentality to instill.
I think that's disgusting, and I don't get it. And there'll be lots of people that listen to this, and women out there that come from a mindset, okay, where the man should pay. You know, what was his name? 50 Cent. They said to 50 Cent,
who should go on a date?
He's on a first date. He said whoever asked.
Yeah.
Now I don't believe for 1 minute you go on a first date and you go back. Of course I'm not. You know, I'm not on the end of that.
Yeah.
I don't believe that at all. But being in a relationship with someone where they expect you to pay for everything, period,
Yeah.
even though they have a job, a career, and all that kind of stuff, to me it's like.
Well, it's narcissism. Well, here's the thing. In Dubai, I would say the number one cause of divorce is that it's that woman that sits at home scrolling through her phone all day while nanny's raising. Oh, please go ahead. Yeah. I was telling Spencer that while you're fasting, if somebody eats in front of you and you're patient, you get more reward from God. So go ahead. And yeah, open. So yeah, I was saying in Dubai, what happens?
You just give it away that it's been in Ramadan.
I know. Oh, it's not going to be released. We cut that out. Yeah, we'll cut that. But what happens in Dubai is that women are incredibly entitled in the sense that they have nannies looking after the kids, they have a maid cleaning up, and they have a cook cleaning. That's cook cleaning, sorry, cook cooking. And they won't even get their partner a glass of water, but expect everything paid for them. And then he becomes so unbelievably unattracted to her. He can't even physically find himself attracted to her. And they always come to me and say, we've got no sex life, we've got no sex life. Why have we got no sex life? He doesn't design me or anything like that. And they're thinking it's something in the intimacy. And I say it's because you do nothing you don't court him in any way.
He has no respect for you.
He doesn't respect, and you don't respect yourself, surely. If you're all day, every day just doing nothing, while the kids are being raised by somebody else, the food is being cooked by somebody else, you're doing nothing. How do you expect him to be physically attracted to you? There's no emotional intimacy. So they don't even ask their partner, how was your day, what was going on, and the partner doesn't even tell them because they think she won't understand. She doesn't know what it's like to close a deal. She doesn't know what it's like to meet with investors. Why am I going to tell a housewife what it's like when you've just invested in the wrong place and how you're waiting for your return on investment is taking longer? She doesn't get it. So they end up just saying, how are the kids? And then expecting, and she's confused why he's not physically attracted to her at the end of the night. He's not going to be attracted to you. So as much as I don't think men want a housewife or anything like that, but they do want to be pampered a little bit. They do want somebody to say, have you eaten? Do you want food? Do you want this? Like I got your coffee. They do like that pampering, just like women do like when a man buys them stuff and invests in them financially. But there's no intellectual intimacy with a woman who's sat at home doing nothing.
It's the term you just used, invests in them financially.
Yeah.
You just said buys them stuff and invests in them financially. That's the same shit.
But here's the thing,
Buys them stuff.
whether we like it or not, women are attracted to men who are able to look after them.
Well, Marilyn Monroe says, okay, a rich man is as valuable as a pretty woman.
Exactly.
It's not essential, but it helps.
It sure does help, is what she says. So yeah.
So my value comes, so I'm more attractive because I'm wealthy, and you're more attractive because you're pretty.
Yeah.
What are you then if you're pretty and wealthy?
Oh, you're a Sadia cunt. No, I'm joking. Can we cut that out?
So not cutting that out.
Well, if you're pretty and wealthy, then you shoot yourself in the foot. Because here's what I say: when you're a woman who's financially independent, this is what happens. Men don't invest in you at all. They don't financially do anything for you because they think she's strong. And when you don't ask for anything as well, there are women out there that are financially independent and they don't ask for anything. But we still feel loved when a man looks after us. Just like a man can cook, but he feels loved when a woman's prepared a hot meal for him. He feels loved when he comes home from with that, even though he can get it himself and he can warm it up himself or whatever it is.
And actually took the time to cook me dinner and put it on the table for us to eat. Then I'll have a conversation with you.
Yeah, of course. Similarly, women who are financially independent, they feel loved when a man says, "Oh, I've just paid your road tax and I've just fixed your coffee," or "Oh, the rent is done. It's okay, don't worry about it." We feel loved when we're invested in. It's biological. It's evolutionary.
My wife loves it when I get caffeine to fill her car up.
Yeah, we love that shit.
She's like, "Thank you so much." He said, "I have to go and get my money."
Here's the thing: there's nothing wrong with a woman wanting financial investment. It's who you're giving that to. What's happening is men are investing in the wrong women. They're investing in that lazy bum entitled woman who's a housewife, and then saying, "Oh, she just wants me for my money." But if you choose, but when they're with a successful woman, they end up not investing in her, and then she ends up feeling a bit resentful. But if you choose a good successful woman who's wholesome and adds value and invest in her, that investment will double. But if you invest in a useless entitled woman, there's no return on that investment.
Whenever I see a couple that look to me like a team,
Yeah.
that genuinely look to me like
Beautiful, right?
I don't mean they're both the hottest people on the planet,
Yeah.
beautiful kids, but they just look like a team. You know, they talk about their business enthusiastically, they talk about life enthusiastically, they just look like they fit.
Yeah.
Okay, that to me is like the best picture you can.
But here's the thing: what makes a successful couple is not 50-50 or something like that. It's both people giving their 100%. And if she's giving 100%, whether it's like looking after him, looking after the home, making sure his life is easy, and he's giving 100% financially, or they're both giving their 100% both home and financially, when both people are extending themselves and putting in the full effort is when it lasts. It's not really about you do cooking, you do that. It's more about, are we both giving exactly everything we have to offer to this partner?
Okay. Can you give advice for someone who's in a traumatic, toxic relationship?
It happens a lot. What happens is with toxic relationships, they give you love in doses. So they'll be nice to you, great to you, and followed by a lot of torture. Nice, torture. And then what happens is we get addicted to that nice, and we remember the nice, and we hold on to that nice moment because we know it's coming. It's going to come in, just hang in there, hang in through the toxic torture, and it will come. But when you have to say to yourself, he's got potential to be good. Remember when he used to be nice. Remember when she was kind. She wasn't always like this. When you have to say those conversations to yourselves, you are lying to yourself. Because when you're saying, remember when she used to be good, remember when he used to be nice, that is really, remember when he wasn't showing you his true colours. So stop holding on to the remember when and replace it with, current situation is bringing out the worst in him and me. Let's let it go.
Sadia,
Yeah, Spencer.
you told me you're 30 years old, don't you?
Oh, a bit older than that.
What did you say you were?
33.
33 years old. You're single?
Yeah.
You're pretty?
Yeah.
You have a career?
Yeah.
I got to know you've got a really warm personality, you're fun to be around, you have nice energy to you.
Yeah.
Why are you single?
I'm not actually single.
Is something changed recently?
No, something's resurfaced recently, yeah. But yeah, I'm not actually single. But I do struggle in terms of like, situations, and I do
You told me
struggle.
something really profound when I listened to you when we were chatting that night. You told me something really profound
What did I
about why you struggle with relationships.
What did I say?
Can you remember?
I'm going to allow you to say it.
Based around the trauma that you have with
Yeah.
relationships and the trauma that you have with what you need from somebody.
I can't remember what I said. Can you remind me?
So you were talking about how you're not actually good for people in the state that you were saying this that night.
Did I say that? I'm so profound. Yeah, what did I say?
You said, I'm a top shagger.
Yeah.
But isn't that probably needs to be cut?
Yeah, no,
But you said that words along the lines of you you don't make people feel, a partner feel what he needs to feel at the moment because of the issues that you have.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
So if I'm feeling anxious and if I'm feeling stressed and if I'm feeling unloved, I will ensure in that moment my partner feels the same emotion. And even if I have to lie to get there, even if I have to...
You're not in a relationship 6 months in, you're feeling unloved.
I'm feeling unloved.
Okay, you're feeling anxious.
Yeah.
And then you would do
I'm
your
feeling
best, you're feeling jealous, you have and do have, so this person might listen to this episode.
You, let's say you, yeah.
You would then make me
feel the same way.
and no matter, you'll concoct a plan consciously or subconsciously.
I would say it's always on a conscious level. It's always on a conscious level. So this is something that I've worked on now, but for a long time, this is what I would do. Say, for example, if I'm feeling anxious, jealous, insecure, I'm going to make sure you feel anxious, jealous, and insecure. Whether that means, like, I don't know, saying mean things, or if it means, not returning calls, or whatever it means, making sure you feel the same way.
Now, when you told me that, when we sat on that evening talking, that was really unusual to me.
That level of self-awareness, or that?
No, the fact that happens and you do that, I felt really sad for you.
Oh.
Okay, I felt some pain there. But now I listen to you say it right now, I'm like, that's not that uncommon.
Everyone does it. I think everyone does it. When we're feeling in a great mood, it's contagious. When you're in a good mood, you make sure, that guy that skips into the office and is like, hey guys, and tries to make everyone feel the same way. And that moody person that comes into the office is miserable and tries to make everyone feel the same way. I'm very good at not doing it in my real life, but I'm very apt at making sure I do it in vulnerable relationships.
That fascinates me, that does. Are you getting better? No, really?
The medication's helping.
Talk to me about your ideal client. So who would you like to, from the audience here, the people that might be listening to you think, she might be able to help me. Who do you typically help?
Do you know what I would say? It's not that necessarily it's my ideal, but what my forte happens to be because of where I live and the environment that I'm in, it is that hyper-successful man who might be either single or going through a divorce or like in relationships, whatever it is. But that hyper-successful man, I can almost navigate him very well because I know the type of women he attracts, I know the type of problems he'll have, I know the emotional disconnect because overworking is a coping mechanism. So to become a hyper-successful man, you have to foster skills that are not transferable to a relationship. And that's why he's so hyper-successful. So it's usually a coping mechanism. It's usually a way of, tuning out what's really going on in the real world. It's an addiction. It's no different to alcohol, but it's just one that society promotes. And so I kind of see through the facade of it with that hyper-successful man, and then we can break that down and get him connected to his true self.
Okay, so for all of you that are listening, watching out there, that's the kind of person that she helps, and so if you're that kind of person, then So tell me, lastly before we finish, okay, have you enjoyed being on the podcast?
I've loved it. You know what's so funny? Before we got here, we're like winging it almost, but now it wasn't great.
Well, I put a lot of time and effort into it.
You didn't know who I was. I came in and he was like, you are.
I said to the guys on the team, and they'll be able to vouch for it. I met this girl the other night.
Yeah?
She needs to come on the podcast.
Blew me away.
Yeah. Didn't say that.
Yeah, you did it.
She was great.
I'm really charming in person, aren't I?
Much better in person than you are, because when you watch your videos and your content on social, you're stern, you're serious, you're a bundle of fun.
Yeah, but you'd never know that on social media. Like,
No.
I'm so fun in real life, but on social media, I'm like, 3 reasons why your wife's gonna leave you, and it's like very negative. 3 reasons why, and it's just very stern, and so people take me really wrong. But if you know me in person, the thing is, the psychology style is 2% of my personality. If you know me in person, it's just a completely different energy. But then I happen to have this psychology style. So online, it's a completely different version. So I'm glad we met on a non-podcast version, environment first, and then we got to do the podcast.
For sure.
Is it harder to take me serious when you know me in person?
I think it's when you don't know someone, you have to try. I've interviewed 250 people, so when you don't know someone, you have to try and connect with them so you consume a lot of content. I think I saw your content. I thought I need to have her on the show. I then met you, and look, the bottom line is you're a sweetheart.
I really am.
You're really, you're lovely and you're friendly and you're vulnerable, and I like that about you as well. So it's just a joy to be around.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. We have to do this again.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.